Yes, please begin.
Good afternoon. We'll go ahead and get started. Welcome to the facts flooding and stormwater presentation. We'll start getting my paper. Okay, who we are. Facts. We are an independent group of concerned property owners who only want the truth about Fairfield Harbor and its governance. Our purpose is to respond to negative, misleading information being disseminated by individuals or groups. In our mission statement, Fairfield Action Council for Truth and Support will pursue truth and provide concerned residents with verifiable information about statements by groups or individuals concerning Fairfield Harbor. Those of you who were here in 2011 know that we had some real problems with that. And that's why the committee got started. FACTS is not connected with nor sanctioned by the Fairfield Harbor POA. We're your neighbors who are just trying to get verified and unfiltered information out to the community. And we thank you, thank each of you for joining us today. FACTS put this program together to provide vital stormwater information for every property owner, present and potential. We do not, nor do panel members, claim to have all the answers. We don't even know all the questions, but we will continue to investigate if called for. For any items y'all need investigated, you'll let FACTS know. We've got our address over there. We've got handouts that have our email address. They're all here. First, let me get some rules for the meeting. First rule, no blaming any person or group for any action or inaction. It's not your fault that we flooded. It's not your fault the road's bad. It's not whatever. We're not going to do that. We're just putting out information today. No finger pointing at any group or person. If someone is talking, let them talk. No interruptions, please. In short, let's do something a little different. Let's act civil to each other. Now, for those of you who have not spent hours in this room, down that hallway and to the right, you will find the bathrooms. The fire escapes for this room, down that hallway, out this door, and out the back door. Do not go straight forward. One, the door is locked, and if you can get through, you're going to be in there with the fire trucks. Lastly, refreshments are on the table to your left. There's sign-up sheets on the table by the entrance door for you to sign in. Hopefully you will be so moved by this presentation today that you will consider joining FACTS. We could use more members. We need people to help us get to the bottom of issues in the harbor and to get the truth out. And we can only do this with the help of our neighbors. So each of you are invited to join FACTS. We meet one day a month for an hour unless we have other problems. And normally we don't. Lastly, please hold your questions to the end when we will have a question and answer period. Now, I am Maury Thompson. I'm the chairperson for FACTS, also the vice chairman of the Stormwater Committee, and your master of ceremonies for this day. I'll be joined on the dais by the people who will be speaking to you. First and foremost is Mr. Ray Redness. Ray cut his teeth on controlling floodwaters and community drainage in Connecticut. 35, 45, 55, number of years before finding his dream home here in Fairfield, right on the creek. His riverfront home received the full wrath of Hurricane Florence with its 12-foot storm surge, with minimal damage. He knows how to do it. He truly knows how to deal with the stormwater issues and has spent countless hours conferring with Fairfield Harbor homeowners about their stormwater concerns, and we are truly blessed to have him in our community and to have him here to address us today. So, without coming up with any more stuff, Ray?
Oh, that quick, huh? Thank you, Maury. And it's great to see a lot of my neighbors here. Thank you for being here. I'm not going to talk about floods because we have much better people to talk about floods than I. What I want to talk about is what happens in Fairfield Harbor during rainstorms and typical drainage aspects of how we are trying to get rid of stormwater so we don't have ponding or water doesn't get into areas of your property and your houses that you don't want. Very simply, the entire community has a system of swales. Those are gullies, ditches, call them any name that you want. They all serve the same purpose. The object of each of your individual swales is to try to conduct as much as 2 inches of rain in a 48-hour period off of your property to get it somewhere with positive drainage. I would say, guessing, there's probably 25 to 30% of the community that cannot get positive drainage because there is nowhere for the water to exit. They can't see daylight. Those swales then become retention swales. They hold the water, hopefully for no more than 3 to 5 days, so it can dissipate in the nice warmer months, evaporate, and eventually dry out. The Stormwater Committee spends a good deal of time trying to have developers, and you know what's going on here. There are literally hundreds of houses being built, and trying to hold their surveyors and engineers, and in fact the developers, to do what they say they're going to do on the plans that we need to approve for them. And what we're looking for is that positive drainage, an easy to maintain system, because difficult to maintain isn't going to get done at all. It's hard enough to get easy to maintain stuff handled. And we go through that process before anyone can even apply for a building permit. A few years ago, we changed the regulations so that the process now comes through the Stormwater Committee. And if the Stormwater Committee is not happy with it, it doesn't even go to the Property Control Committee. We spend a good deal of time talking to people, builders, surveyors, engineers, including the person who's having a home built. We often hear that we're holding up things for them. It's taking too much time. We're costing them money. I'm sorry, but we're not. An application comes in and we review it and get back to those folks. I can't think of an incident that it took more than a week. And this is all volunteers doing this work. And we've had some mighty good people on this committee, and we still do. And they put in a good deal of time to make sure this happens. We also get an awful lot of calls of situations out in your lots, your properties, and I've probably talked to several of you, where water is sitting there, or water is coming from the next door neighbor, or water is coming off the golf course, or it's coming off the road and it's not behaving the way it should. And that's completely understandable with the state of the system that is now 50 years old and for many years has not seen consistent maintenance. And it's very hard to do that. And we're spending a lot of time trying to make up for lost time and getting those systems back in order. But it's something that each and every homeowner should be aware of and helping out with. And that is not putting stone, rocks, or plantings in your swales. Even the front swales, we see a lot of them with stones piled up in there. And we understand why. It's not hard, it's not easy to maintain that. It's even harder to mow it. But those stones are inhibiting flow. They're not helpful at all. The other thing is that a lot of these culverts, especially your driveway culverts, get clogged up. They collect debris over time, and it closes the pipe. It just goes from this, smaller and smaller and smaller, until you can barely see light from the other end, if you can. Some of those swales carry more water from other places, especially the front swale, or swales that are serving other areas through POA land. Those swales are maintained by the POA. The ones for you, in front of your houses and the sides of your houses, are supposed to be maintained by you. We can help you from time to time with how to do that and who to contact to do that, but we really can't do all that for you. It would simply take an enormous amount of time and an enormous amount of money to bring this whole system back to where it needs to be. That's going to happen slowly. So what we look at and what we try to do is take the more serious areas and look at properties that are more inclined to collect water or flood under rainstorm conditions. And we try to find out how to fix those, and we go about trying to do that. We prepare budgets each year for the POA board to go through. In those budgets, we have a list of projects that we feel are necessary and need to be done on a timely basis. And that's our approach to how we deal with the everyday ordinary drainage in the market. Obviously, when you get a hurricane like Florence, and I think it was Irene before that, so I saw some flooding for that. There is nothing the systems in the harbor can do. They're not equipped for that. There was never an intent to handle that. Water's going to come up, water's going to go down. We live in Eastern Carolina, we're in a floodplain. And that's just something we need to live with. We intend to try to make it as good and as good working as it can. But it's a hard task, it's a long task, and we would like everybody's help. So, anytime if anybody has any questions at all, I don't know if my contact is up there, but I'm in the book. Call me. My cell phone is listed. Just call me. I will call you back. I'll come and see you, and we can talk about what your issues are. Go from there.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ray. Next, we have Donnie Lavelle, a planner from the Craven County Planning Department. All yours. Wow, I actually feel kind of taller than you. Doesn't happen very often. Good afternoon, I'm Donnie Lavelle. I'm one of the planners for Craven County. I've got my other cohort here, William Flynn. He's one of the other planners as well. I've been with the county probably 18, 19 years at this point. I've been dealing with flood stuff for the last couple of years. I've lived in Craven County pretty much my entire life. I grew up in Havelock. I was a Marine brat, if anybody knows what that is. Went to school at East Carolina University, graduated and came back here. Lived in Boone for a small amount of time, but I won't count that. So I've been in this area my whole life. I've seen it change a lot. Seen a lot of disasters over now and then. That's just a little bit about me, and I'm going to go into our presentation. I do have in the back, there are flood brochures that we mail out yearly. There are business cards from me and Will. This is going to be a very general presentation, no real specifics. If you have specific questions about your property or anything in the area and whatnot, please give us a call, shoot us an email. I'd be more than happy to try to address those, regardless of what they are. Some of the strangest questions or some of the most interesting ones to try to figure out. And I like figuring out problems, so you're not going to bother. Make sure you talk. Okay, so our first slide here is FEMA, North Carolina, Craven County, and the NFIP. Some of those terms are going to be familiar, and the other ones that aren't, I'm going to tell you what they are. To be eligible for any kind of disaster assistance from FEMA, and to be able to purchase flood insurance, communities must adopt and enforce flood damage prevention standards. So if the county didn't participate in the flood insurance, or didn't participate in the flood standards, you wouldn't be able to purchase flood insurance at all. Our maps are actually created by North Carolina Emergency Management, and they're approved for use by FEMA. North Carolina is very different in that regard. Most of the states just have their maps done by FEMA. North Carolina, after Hurricane Floyd, that happened in 1999, I think. There was a big drought, and you'll see up here in just a second, a big drought between the first set of flood maps and the next set of flood maps. So North Carolina decided to try to do them themselves. Many other states are starting to follow suit with that. So hopefully the goal is to have a better product than what the federal government can provide. So what does Craven County do in all this? What we do is we enforce our flood damage prevention ordinance. We answer questions from the public like yourself, flood zones, flood requirements, you name it, I've probably heard it or will be asked it at some point.
We do deal with violations to the flood damage prevention ordinance. If someone repaired their house without getting a permit, or if someone did X, Y, or Z, it is in our purview to have to deal with that. Not my favorite part of this job, but sometimes that's got to be done. And something else we do is we provide documents yearly to FEMA to certify that we are keeping with the design standards. To give you an idea, we just sent those back in this year, so we have to do that every year, and they are very thorough, and they're very thorough. Let me just leave it at that. And something we also do is we participate in the community rating system, the CRS program, which you have no idea what that is, and I'm going to tell you. The community rating system is a voluntary program that the county participates in through higher standards. So we enforce some higher standards than what FEMA requires. Through that program, we can get discounts on your flood insurance policy. So currently, well, as of recently, we were a Class 8, but now we are a Class 7. A Class 8 gave everyone a 10% discount. A Class 7 will now give everybody a 15% discount that you should start seeing in October of this year. A lot of our staff members spent a lot of time in putting together a lot of documents, and we finally managed to get that Class 7. We wanted to be a Class 7 for a long time, but there were certain aspects of building code that really made some of that difficult. This is some basic flood information for the area. Craven County first got our first set of flood maps in 1987. Since then, we've had two other major revisions. We've had the 2004 maps and the 2020 maps. In between that time, there are some minor revisions that have taken place. Before that, and even since then. In fact, Carteret County, since we share a border with Carteret County, their new flood maps became effective. And so technically, our flood maps changed a little bit, even though there wasn't really any change in our area. During these revisions, both sets of revisions that we've had, major revisions, the BFEs, which are the base flood elevations, which is basically how high you have to go above sea level to build your structure, have increased in many areas, especially in the 2020 maps. You had BFEs, especially say in downtown New Bern, go from 8 feet to sometimes 12, 11, etc. We did see some areas in the county that the BFEs went down, specifically over in the Adams Creek area, which is in the eastern side of the county. The flood zone in that area generally decreased. BFEs went from 8 in some spots down all the way down to 6. So over specifically in Fairfield, you used to have a static BFE of 8 for everywhere that was in the special flood hazard area. That has changed. You do have some areas that have a BFE of 10 feet, 9 feet, and 8 feet. Meaning that you could be building right next to your neighbor, and your neighbor has to go to, say, 9 feet or 10 feet, and you're having to go higher than that or lower than that. It happens that way. The BFE lines go in between properties. It's specifically based on ground elevation, etc. During the last set of major revisions we've got, we did get new flood zones. Specifically, we got VE zones, we've got our coastal A zones, and we've got overwash areas, which are AOs. Those are on the military base and don't really affect many people, but we did get some new flood zones. So one question we get a lot is, how do I determine what flood zone I'm in? Well, the easiest way to do that is to call our office. We actually get points with the CRS system for every time you call in, and we give you information. So we appreciate it when you do that, but anybody in our office would be more than happy to provide you with the flood information for your house, flood information for maybe a property you're looking at. We get that a lot, especially from realtors. Hey, what's the flood zone in this property? That's something that everyone in the office really wants to help you with, and please call us. Something else you can use, which I've got a slide about this after this, is you can use the North Carolina Flood Risk Information System. It's called the NC FRIZ. If you talk to me at all, I'll talk about it a lot. It's located at that URL there, but you can also just go to Google and type in NC Frizz, and it will take you straight to it, and I'll have a couple of slides about that here in a minute. Something else you could do is you could choose to get an elevation certificate from an NC licensed surveyor. There's some positives to that could possibly help you on your flood insurance. It will also give you definitives for your structure, how high your finished floor is, how many flood vents you have, if you have any, how high your mechanical is, which is your electrical, HVAC, things of that nature. It does cost you money, anywhere from $400 or $500 on, depending on the surveyor. So the two options above that are free, but you don't get that nice elevation certificate that you can use for other things. So you might be curious about what is the Frizz and how do you use it? Well, here's an example. Let's see, I think that there's a pointer. Here's an example of the Frizz. I literally grabbed a screen capture of where you'll come to. Over in here in this corner, you can put your full address. That's critical. You need your city, your state, and your zip. If not, it may take you somewhere else. But if you put your city, state, and zip in there, it will carry you pretty close to where your house is located. And it will give you something that looks like this. You'll have, on this particular spot in Fairfield Harbor, you have two different flood zones. You have the blue, which is the AE zone, and you have the yellow, which is the shaded X. So you can see how these lines kind of come in and go in between structures, around structures, etc. So it is possible for your neighbor to be right next to you, be in the flood zone, and then be out of the flood zone. It happens. It will provide you some critical information up here, talking about what your elevation is, your base flood elevation. This gives you some more information about your panel. A lot of information you wouldn't really use, but it's useful if you're trying to get some more in-depth knowledge. You can even download maps from this website. It is run by the state of North Carolina. They're the ones who do the maps, so this should have the most up-to-date information on there. Some things to watch out for. If you're looking for a specific lot that doesn't have a home on it, be cautious that it takes you to the right location. Lots are a little bit more difficult for it. I've seen it a lot of times where if you put in, say for instance, I'm going to go down this court, lot 12, whatever, it will take you to the start of the court and not necessarily take you down the court. But with actual homes, it works a lot better. If in doubt, always give us a call. We're more than happy to help. Let's see, so this is Frizz. Okay, so we have some frequently asked questions that I get a lot. Specifically, how do we determine how high a structure's got to go when it's being built? That's one we get a lot. So if the house is being built or very close to being built in the special flood hazard area, I'm going to require that you get an elevation certificate. What that's going to do is that's going to outline the zone you're in. So if you're very close to being in the flood zone or not, it will say yes, you're in, no, you're not. If you're in, it will give you your base flood elevation. It will give you your ground elevation. Depending on how the surveyor's actually done the form, it should give us your preliminary heights of your structure, how high they plan on building it, how many flood vents they're going to have, how high is the water heater going to be elevated, how high is the electrical system going to be elevated. And we use that elevation certificate to write your flood development permit. During construction, typically you'll have a surveyor go out there and put a benchmark so everybody knows how high they have to be in the field. After everything is done, and before a final inspection is done, we will require a finished elevation certificate. This elevation certificate will now tell us your house was built at this, your machinery is elevated to this, you have X number of flood vents, and we will look at that for compliance. If, for instance, you have something that is not compliant, we will not give you a CO until it comes into compliance. We've had that problem recently with a few houses being built, so it's something that does have to get resolved from time to time, but for the most part, everything goes along really smoothly. Our next question that we have is, do you need a permit to repair your flood damaged home? Yes, you need a permit to repair your flood damaged home. If your contractor tells you you don't need a permit, you need to call us and ask us. There are some instances where you might not need a permit, but for the vast majority of them, you need a permit for it. I can't tell you how many people have come after the fact and said, hey, I'm trying to get the records of my permits that were pulled for my home repair. Well, it doesn't look like you got any permits. Oh, well, my contractor was supposed to do that. Well, they say a lot of things, they don't always do that. Always feel free to give us a call. My contractor's telling me I don't need a permit. You can always ask us and we'll let you know. And a side note is those permits are typically free. That determination is typically made right after a flooding event or right after a disaster, but typically they are free after a disaster. Another thing we get is, do you have an elevation certificate for my house? Well, I have a lot of elevation certificates, well over 1,000 at this point that we've scanned in our system, dating all the way back to 1987. Now, the further back you get, the less we have, but we have a ton of them. If you're looking, give us a call. It takes less than 10 minutes to figure out if we have them or not. And we do get CRS points for having all of those on file and easy to access. Another question we get is, I have an older elevation certificate. Is it still good? That's a little bit tougher of a question. Are they still a document that is certified? Yes. Is necessarily all that information still up to date? Probably not. It can be useful in determining how high your floor is, etc. But even that can be difficult at times. To not get into too many details, if you've got an elevation certificate before 2004, the elevations are off because they've changed the calculations of the curvature of the earth. And I can go into more details than that if anybody's inclined to ask. Some other questions we'll get is, what is a freeboard and why do we have them? Well, a freeboard is an additional requirement that's part of that CRS program where, say for instance, your VFE is 8, we would require you to go to 10 feet instead of being at 8. It is basically an increased height that you have to go for mechanical, for your living space, for flood-proofing materials, etc. That is one of the things that we get that offers some of the most points that we can to get that flood discount higher for y'all. And on the plus side, it makes your homes not safe, but safer from flooding. That is all I have. Again, I'm Donnie Lavelle. This is William Flynn. Our phone number is 252-636-6618. And then our email addresses are there. If you have any specific questions, please ask. I enjoy answering them, and I know that Will does too. So appreciate it, and have a great day, y'all.
Thank you, Donnie. Okay, Donnie covered all of Will's presentation. So, don't luck out. You only got to hear one.
Makes my life easy.
But, unfortunately, Heather Thornburg from Wade Associates is on